Okay, now we are coming to our discussion related to checkpoint. Okay, we know that logging is nothing but description of changes whatever happening in the database. The statement what I am saying that whatever operation which is happening in the database, to that operation we are maintaining the description, just like actions or events which define what is the operation it is happen. Like that, it is the description of the changes to the database. We know initially only logs to be recorded in the disk instead of actual data. We know that initially only the log record is to be added to the disk. The actual data file which that are changed or written to the disk later by some operations. Now in that, two ways are there, either checkpoint or some lazy write operation, and other way is also there. Now here we have three ways overall: checkpoint and lazy write operation, lazy writer. The third way is I didn't exactly remember, but we'll during the discussion we'll cover that third way also. Okay, and let us take, this is the file, this is my RAM. In that RAM we have buffer pool. In that buffer pool we have log area and data area. This is the data files. This is the log block with log files. Okay, whenever any modification happen to the data page, first it generate the log record, and this log record need to be insert in the file first. Now we have two ways to do, one is three ways, but one is checkpoint, next is lazy writer. Checkpoint is a mechanism through periodically it is checking in the hard disk, in the memory of the buffer pool to the log blocks, and periodically it is transferring the log file to the hard disk. Sorry, what I am here saying that checkpoint is nothing but periodically flushing the data file. Okay, periodically it is flushing the data file to the hard disk file, which is okay. Whereas lazy writer is not a periodically, whenever it get full pressure of the memory, it need to release some memory, so it getting the pressure, at that time it is flushing. Okay, checkpoint and lazy writer are flushing the data file, not the log file. Somehow I shall confuse that checkpoint is flushing the log file. Sorry, it is not flushing the log file, it is flushing the data file, but checkpoint is periodically flushing the data file to the hard disk. Whereas lazy writer, whenever it get intense requirement to release some amount of memory, then it forcefully flushes the data file to the hard disk. Okay, lazy writer is a background process that write dirty pages to the disk only when the buffer pool is under memory pressure, not on a schedule base. Whereas I said checkpoint is based on the schedule base. Okay, you got it here. Next, the main goal of lazy writer is to free up the memory by writing the least recently used dirty pages to the disk, and it doesn't have any goal to support recovery, like whatever checkpoint is doing. uh, okay, it doesn't consider the purpose, like to support whatever checkpoint it is doing. Main purpose here is to free up the memory. Okay, it doesn't, and we can say that it is independent on transaction, independence of transaction, and does not generate log record when it is writing the pages. Okay, now we cover the basic why we need the checkpoint. First of all, we need to know, we observe that already data files which are available in memory, which are not written to the hard disk, but at the same time transaction is committed. How we are saying that transaction is committed? By this mechanism, whatever we know that write ahead log mechanism, we are just committing the data. Committing the transaction is nothing but we give the durability by through the logging mechanism. Log files are flushing to the hard disk, but not the data file. Data file is not written to the disk. Okay, that's why we are this is the mechanism in our normal uh, in our workflow. But why we need checkpoint is, first is I said already that mechanism, whatever I said, that is write ahead mechanism. But the reason why we need here checkpoint is because first, to reduce the crash recovery time, and the next reason is based on the performance of the IO system. So in the first reason, to reduce the crash recovery time, data file is not yet, we know that data file is not yet written to the disk, whereas log records are written to the disk. But we know that data files having up to date which are available in memory, but hard disk doesn't have the data file which are in up to date. Those two difference we know. But hard disk contain the log file. Whenever crash is happen, through the updated log file which is available in a hard disk, we can guarantee that data file will redo some processing, some processing logic, and update the data file which is available in hard disk whenever it crash occur. But whenever it crashes occur during the recovery, it take large amount of time. When it compare, that data file is very lag, but log file is contained very far. By seeing the LSN number, data file LSN is very, like we say 100 is the LSN number in data file, where log content LSN number is 1000. That means there is a lot of LSN need to process and update in the data file. But whenever at the time crash is happen, during recovery it takes much amount of time. So to avoid the recovery of the time, what it is doing, periodically one object take the responsibility to flush the data file which are dirty means which are up to date in memory, but in disk it is contains very less, means very far, but in memory up to date is there. Those data file periodically it is periodically it is flushing to the hard disk. So during the periodically it is flushing, I said previously, log is in 1000 LSN number, data file is in 100 LSN number, crash recovery 900 LSN number need to process, but it is periodically it is flushing the data file. Then somewhat it is LSN number of the data file in hard disk maybe up to 500 or 700. Then Whenever crash is required, difference is very little. Okay, that is the one scenario to reduce the crash recovery time. We said it is redo phase. Crash recovery, we have two phases, undo and redo. This one is redo. Log returns are written immediately, but data pages are not written to the disk at commit time. Therefore, memory may contain recent version of data pages than what which is available on the disk. If a system is crash occur, SQL must do replay or some redo to the transaction to bring disk data up to date. Checkpoint take the responsibility to reduce the amount of work needed during the crash recovery by periodically flushing the dirty pages to the disk. I will explain what is the dirty and clean pages later. Next, second reason what we said is the data files are not written to the disk at the time that a transaction is commit in the first place is to reduce the number of IOs. The number of IOs that actually have to go to the disk for the data file, thus improving the overall performance of the system. Okay. Uh, mm, we know that actually, let us take, I will explain from the scenario. Two scenarios are there. We have log LSN number is 1000, data file LSN number is 100. Okay, now memory contain the data file up to date. Now during certain duration, it memory need to require for buffer manager. Whenever memory requirement is needed to the buffer manager, through some mechanism it extract that memory, means it need to flush the data file. So suddenly 900 data pages will, not 900 but bulk data files will need to flush to the hard disk. Then this make the performance issue. At a time for the IO system, lot of load will be occur. So to improve the performance and to reduce the load, so what I am saying, to improve the performance, to decrease the load in the IO, we are flushing the data file some quantity through periodically. That one also improve the performance of the system. So I said two purpose checkpoint is needed. One is during the crash recovery time, next is to improve the performance. Okay, does it make more sense to write the data page to disk after every one of those change? In fact, 1000 times after every one of those 1000 transaction commit? Or does it make more sense to write it just one after a certain period of time during a checkpoint operation that periodically flushes pages that have got changes to the disk? Obviously, it makes more sense to do the latter, to flush the pages just one rather than 1000 write to a single page. Does it make more sense to write the data page to the disk after every one of those change? Okay,